Imagine getting paid for every extra hour you work, without losing a cent to taxes. Sounds like a dream, right? Well, what if I told you another country has already tried this? Back in 2007, France introduced a no-tax on overtime policy. Their goal? To jumpstart a sluggish economy and reward hard-working citizens. But did it work? Did it lead to prosperity or burnout? In today's video, we'll dive into the truth behind these no-tax promises, impact to your wallet, the pros and cons, for the government and for the overall economy, explore whether it's really worth it, and reveal how it could reshape the US economy. Should you work more overtime if this happens? Let's find out. The idea of no tax on overtime is simple. You work extra hours and you keep everything you earn from that overtime pay free of taxes. Politicians are throwing this around as a way to boost disposable income for workers and encourage more productivity. The big question is, does it really benefit you? At first glance, it sounds like a great deal. More hours, more money, but should you start packing your weekends with extra shifts? Let's weigh the options. The no tax on overtime policy is currently under discussion within the GOP. It remains on the discussion table at the upcoming internal GOP budget. If this no tax on overtime gets passed in the GOP budget, it could potentially be incorporated into the 2026 federal budget. So let's dive in more on this topic. Let's start with the pros. First off, more take-home pay means more spending power. For those looking to save up, pay off debt, or even invest, this policy could be a game changer. Extra hours with no tax bite could give your wallet some breathing room. Secondly, it can boost motivation. Knowing that your overtime won't be taxed might make that late-night shift or weekend work feel more worthwhile. And for businesses, it could mean getting more done without having to hire additional staff. In the short term, it seems like a win-win. But let's not forget the cons. First of all, there's the potential for burnout. With no tax on overtime, some workers might feel pressured to work longer hours to boost their pay, leading to exhaustion and even diminished productivity in the long run. Secondly, this policy could hurt the government's tax revenue. In France, the policy cost the government billions in lost taxes, and that hurt their ability to fund important public services. In the United States, with an already high national debt, do we really want to risk taking away even more revenue? For employers, while it might seem like a way to get more work done, the long-term impact isn't so clear. Over-reliance on overtime could mean fewer new hires, stagnating job growth, and potentially pushing existing workers too far. Companies might save on hiring, but at what cost to employee well-being? And what about the economy? Well, France's experience teaches us something important. Their no tax on overtime policy didn't last. In fact, it was repealed in 2012 because it strained public finances. The government lost too much tax revenue to keep funding public programs effectively. If this policy is introduced in the US, it could give a short-term boost to spending, but at what long-term cost? With rising national debt and growing demands on government services, the question is, can we afford to take the hit? So, should you work more overtime if this policy becomes a reality? It all comes down to your personal financial goals. For some, the extra cash might be exactly what's needed to hit savings milestones or pay off debt. But for others, the risk of burnout or sacrificing work-life balance might not be worth it. And if you're working those extra hours because you're relying on overtime pay to make ends meet, that's a sign to revisit your personal finance strategy. Over-reliance on overtime income could leave you vulnerable if the policy gets repealed, like it did in France. The no tax on overtime idea sounds appealing. But like France, the US could face serious challenges. Yes, you might pocket more cash in the short term, but it could come at the cost of government programs, tax revenue, and even your well-being. Some economists like Arthur Laffer argue that lower taxes on overtime could stimulate productivity and boost consumer spending, giving the economy a much-needed jolt. On the other hand, critics like Paul Krugman warn that it could undermine public services by eroding tax revenue and increase wealth inequality. In the end, it's all about balance. Will this policy truly help the American worker, or is it a temporary fix that leaves deeper problems unresolved? Only time will tell. What do you think? Should the US adopt this policy? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insights on personal finance and economic trends.